Should I start singing to
I'm surprised you don't have it on one of the quick buttons at this point.
Yeah, well, all right. Welcome back to the Project GenX podcast. I am one of your hosts, Alan Smith, along with...
I'm the other guy, Big Dave.
And we would like to announce that our good friend...
Barry
is going to be a featured player from now on.
Translation: Alan didn't want to write any more episodes and say, "Hey, can you come up with some stuff?"
Well, Barry has not even me saying I don't want to write anything. You've just like been sporadically throwing stuff at us and like, okay, cool. And also the fact that our episodes with the three of us are always really good.
Oh,
so
yeah.
We had a good time, and it's like, hey, this will be awesome. We can bring another one of our buds in and
absolutely
and sit down.
Happy to be here. Happy
and
to be here.
We can piss Corey off and
always a good thing. Hi, Corey. I miss you.
I guess that means I've got to add him as a moderator on the Discord server now.
There you go. Yeah. So Barry's going to be. I don't know if you're going to be on every episode, but you're going to be on a lot of episodes going forward. I know because we all live like not close to each other.
God bless technology. That's
but we also have the ability to, like, Dave is at home because Ms. Nay is still not feeling well, and so we do have the ability.
She's feeling absolutely fine. She ended up going to work on Friday, and now she's catching up on work at the other job.
Okay, so Dave just didn't want to come here.
Yeah.
And
well, no, technically I'm still within my quarantine period, so I just don't want to take a chance on you guys ended up with it. So.
And we appreciate that, brother.
I ain't scared. So.
Yeah.
So Barry, since this is one of your topics,
it is
one of many that you've brought to us.
Because I knew this would be
something close to my heart.
Exactly.
I love this.
I know that this was something that there was a recent passing. Whenever you listen to this, Howard Hessman recently passed away, and
Dr. Johnny Fever.
Yeah, people know him from a lot of different movies, a lot of different TV shows. The man was talented across the board, but there is one role that he will forever be known as, and that is Dr. Johnny Fever from the TV show WKRP in Cincinnati.
Yes. You want me to sing it?
Yeah, no.
If you ever wonder. Yeah, exactly. We did that before we started doing this.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
We may have to do a deep dive into WKRP at some time because it was such a seminal late 70s, early 80s.
Well, and the funny thing
television show.
There's a big misconception about that show too, because there was a movie called FM that was one of the first ones that I can recall that actually was about a radio station. And a lot of people think that the movie was the inspiration for the TV show, when in fact the TV show actually came out before the movie did.
Okay, fair enough.
But that got me thinking about, through history on television and movies and things like that, there's always been great stories that involved DJs.
Right.
That mysterious voice that you hear in the dark that's, kind of steering the story or, playing the narrator or just kind of framing things. So I wanted to do a whole episode on just, famous DJs from movies and TV, either ones that actually made an appearance on a show or something.
Right.
Or ones that were created in the show.
Right.
And, it's one of those things, some of them just had the voices that you'll never forget. So I kind of made a list of it. I know these guys have kind of done a little bit of homework on it too. But
one of us has.
But I just thought
one of us is completely flying by the seat of his pants here.
Fair enough. But
which one would that be?
I can't imagine.
Which person would that be?
Can't imagine.
It's me. I left all my stuff at home. No, I'm just kidding. But
I have a list. I've been watching movies and television.
Well, Dave's not wearing pants, so we know that it's
yes.
Hey, even going back to my college radio days, I very rarely wore pants.
Well, there you go.
In that case, we're glad you're on Zoom and not in the room. So
we are going to have.
I would get to the college.
We are going to have a reenactment of the rocker here in a minute. So
yes,
which is another topic we need to talk about. So
definitely. Well, I'll go ahead and get.
I would get to the college station, and it would. I worked that 9 to midnight shift.
Nobody
I was the only one there, and it was usually hot in the studio. So I was. Let's just take those pants off right now.
We won't talk about the things that happen in that DJ booth.
Well, and I know that both Dave and Alan have had some experience in a radio booth. One of my exes was a radio DJ for lengthy period of time. So I kind of knew my way around there a little bit. And it was just, it's one of those magical places that you,
absolutely,
if you've never actually been in one, you always have this image in your mind of what goes on in those places, you know?
Well, you know, okay, before we get into it, you know, that's a whole, like, going back to WKRP in Cincinnati. I remember watching that show as a kid and thinking that would be the coolest job ever. You know,
Absolutely.
Just sit around and play music all day. Now, obviously, whenever Dave and I especially got really, was like, oh, you mean there's a lot more to this than just playing music, you know? And I do know from knowing people who were DJs, you know, there's, you go in, you work your 4-hour shift or whatever, but then there's a lot of production that you have to do before
editing,
and after.
A lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, and so it's a full job. It's not just going in there and it's
slowly and surely becoming a dying job
absolutely.
now.
It's all automated. You know?
More and more are getting them automated, or as I've heard it called, jock in a box.
Yeah.
Where it's really kind of replacing that element. And I know that, you know, when the three of us were growing up, that was part of the mystique was, you know, you
DJs
had that local DJ that was just the coolest thing ever.
But DJs could break music, you know, I mean, that was literally that was a thing that
Alan Freed.
Yes,
Alan
absolutely.
Freed was the first one to really start breaking records. He didn't do it
out
legally.
of Philadelphia.
No.
Yeah, it wasn't legal the way he did it, but, you know, hey.
Well, he's one of those DJs that is always referenced as one of those influential DJs, but he was also one of those rule breakers who also got caught up in a payola.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, him and Dick Clark were the two big ones that got busted in payola.
Out of L.A.
Yep. Yep. And Dick Clark came out, you know, pretty well squeaky clean, and Alan Freed's career went down the tube after that.
He died of alcoholism.
Yeah,
you know, that
penniless.
was,
That's because Dick Clark sold his soul to the devil.
He didn't age until he had his stroke.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, Ryan Seacrest took over his soul, so it's okay. Yeah.
Christina P. I can't remember her last. She's got a big, long Polish last name, but then she just goes by Christina P. She's a comedian. Has got a really, really funny and completely, like, not kind bit about the last years of Dick Clark being on the New Year's Eve.
Oh, it was hard to watch.
I know.
It was so hard to watch.
She compared him to a dog that needed to be put down 2 years ago that you just can't bring your heart to do.
And God love him. I mean, it didn't work. But in his heyday,
I know.
I mean, a lot of people are familiar with him from like American Bandstand and stuff. But
I remember watching him on American Bandstand in the afternoons on Saturday.
Absolutely.
You know,
but you know, to hear him on the radio was a totally different story, because I actually got a chance to catch some of his radio shows, and he knew how to command. There was a few times where he had stood in for like Casey Kasem on American Top 40, and just hearing his command of a microphone and keeping your audience into it, he was so good at what he did.
And I was wrong. It wasn't L.A. It was Philly.
It was Philly.
Yeah, he was out of Philly.
He was on one of the...
That's where Bandstand was
Bandstand was out of it. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
But you're talking about DJs. They weren't just, you know, breaking music and personalities. They were also part of the, you know, the social movements that happened during, you know, the 40s and the 50s and the 60s.
Well, that was the whole thing. Alan Freed started playing
DJs,
black musicians. Yeah. You know, and that was you can't do this. So it's like, no. Yeah.
You know, DJs were very much the punk rockers on the announcer side. From the music side, because these are guys that were pushing the boundaries. They were, you know, breaking the rules. They were moving, you know, the social conscious forward.
Well, and the interesting
thing, the bean counters and the marketers got involved,
and they ruined everything like they do. They ruined it like they do everything else.
And if you really want to just kind of do a deep dive on things, go through and look at what celebrities actually did do radio DJing at one point in time. The one that still throws me, Ronald Reagan was a DJ.
Oh, wow. I could see that.
And there's a story about he was doing sports commentary for Chicago Cubs radio. And he was in California. They were sending him the information from Chicago to try to broadcast the game.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the problem was the information was getting transferred and it was getting delayed.
Oh.
So he had to sit there and stall on a game. So he was basically making up a game as he was going through.
Nice.
They finally had to call Chicago and get them on the phone to get the information on how the game finished. So it's hilarious to read some of these things.
You know, Dave, again, you know, Dave and I were at college, you know, with communications.
Right.
Were you a communications major or no, Dave?
Yeah, my associate's degree was in communications.
Because I know we were taking communication.
Television, radio.
We were doing communication classes.
Yep.
And Mr. E, shout out to Mr. E. We've talked about him quite a bit on here. He was the guy that ran WVCP up there for years and years. He retired year before last. And but he in our I can't remember which class it was. Now, it wasn't mass comm. It was...
Was it advertising?
No.
That was actually one of my favorite classes.
No, it was the other one that you and I had together. I don't remember what it was.
Production?
No, the other one, the last time we were in school together. I know we were in school together many times over the years because I kept dropping out and coming back, and Dave was always there. and
he's wrong for that, but he's not wrong.
But I'm not wrong, exactly. But he had us watch. It's a Ken Burns documentary called Empire of the Air.
Yes,
which is all about the early. It
amazing.
is so good. I didn't even know it existed until we sat there watching. I was like, oh my god, this is so good.
Say what you want about Ken Burns, because
I love his documentaries.
Some of his stuff's really good. Some of it will put you to sleep. Yeah. But that one is really good. The one on country music is amazing.
I still have not seen that one. I need to watch
really
that.
Good. The one on baseball is one of my favorites.
Well, the one he did about jazz in the early 2000s was really good. Of course, everybody the Civil War,
Yeah, that one kind of drug on.
And I'll be honest, the one that I didn't really get into
the one
was
he did
the
on
World
baseball.
War. Yeah. He did one about, was it World War II?
I believe so.
I could not get into that one. And it's I think part of that also had to do with the fact that has been. That subject matter has been tread so many times that it's like you're really not bringing anything new to this whatsoever.
You know the Ken Burns documentary Drinking Game, right?
No.
You have to take a shot every time they do a fly-in for a picture.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you'll be hammered.
I was ready to say
20 minutes into the game.
It's like trying to watch the original Star Wars trilogy and take a drink every time Luke Skywalker whines because you never make it past Dagobah. I mean, it's just...
the thing...
Yeah, no kidding.
You're talking about the Ken Burns photo fly-in?
Yes.
That became so prevalent that it's actually a photo movement, an actual labeled movement in some video editing suites.
It's called the
Ken Burns effect.
That's awesome.
It's called the Ken Burns effect.
That is awesome.
So yeah, since all three of us,
I'm guilty. I've used it a time or two.
Since all three of us have seen it, we're going to go on record is suggesting go and check out Ken Burns' Empire of the Air.
Yes, it is.
It is
really, really
very
good.
I mean, and it's especially all of the who invented radio. Because you got Tesla, you got Marconi, you got all these guys that just like, oh my God,
and see how
it's such a mess,
and what it affected, and going from radio to shortwave to all of these
to FM
to FM.
FM was a whole big thing.
That was
the guy that actually created FM wound up killing himself because they pretty much stole it from him.
Yep.
So So
and at one point they were trying to develop like stereo for AM that they were stealing from FM, and they could just never get it off the ground.
Because by that point, everybody had switched over, and they weren't really going to make the transition back to AM.
Right.
All right. Well,
since we're 13 minutes in already,
well, we've already kind of started talking about the first one that I had on my list. So let's go ahead and get it out of the way. The show WKRP in Cincinnati, because it had some great DJs. Of course,
Venus Flytrap. That's my man right there.
You had Venus Flytrap, who was played by Tim Reed.
Right.
You had Dr. Johnny Fever. That was played by Howard Hessman.
Les Nessman. He was the news guy. I know, but it was like,
those were the three big
winner
ones.
of the Buckeye Award. For how many years?
Oh my gosh, those were the ones that really just kind of set it off.
Humanity.
That had so many great stories in it. And the interesting thing about this
that episode is still
the turkey episode.
I have seen that so many times, and it still makes me laugh uncontrollably every time.
Just the deadpan.
I posted every Thanksgiving.
I know you
every
do.
Thanksgiving I post a video from YouTube.
And everybody talks about that one, but there's another episode that no one really talks about that was really the first one that I remember where it hit home to us.
About the Who concert?
The Who concert in Cincinnati, where they had general admission seating and people got
four people died in that, and they were sponsoring it.
Yeah.
Which there's not an actual WKRP, but it's one that's, but in their universe, they were sponsoring the concert.
And just the aftermath of it. And that was real. That actually happened.
Right.
And it was the first time that I can remember, granted I was a kid, but it's the first time I can remember a show, actually a sitcom, addressing a real life scenario.
Because that was before the very special episode.
Yes.
It became real prominent. And it was one of the first ones.
And you're like, oh my God, this is legit.
Right.
All right.
I'll tell you another, hold on before, another one of my favorite WKRP episodes is the one where they brought the state trooper in to do
the alcohol
thing, and Johnny Fever kept saying alcohol doesn't affect me. You know,
it just getting faster.
He kept getting faster with the
and Venus is over there falling over drunk.
Venus is like, Johnny comes in, he hits the button, and Venus is like, and they're off. Because the whole thing, he quote unquote thought that he was drunk because he came walking through the main hallway.
Yep.
And there was a fish painting the WKRP sign, which was actually the logo. It was actually the mascot from a rival, a rival station that snuck in.
Oh my gosh! That one was still one of my favorites. All right, Dave.
But the more alcohol he drank, the sharper he got.
The faster he got. Yeah, I know.
He got.
And the guy kept saying, "It is impossible for this to be going on."
All right, Senor. What's your first one there?
Hi, Snoopy.
The first
he's got his whole head in now.
Yeah. Hey, you know better.
Until we get video, you guys have no idea. But Dave is on Zoom, and his dog keeps poking his head in the room like, "Can I come in? Can I come in?
Are you done yet? Are you done yet?"
Unlike my dogs, who just like throw themselves right in the middle of everything, to hear them on the air every once in a while. So.
That's because I make mine behave a little bit.
Yeah,
First one I'm going to pull out is Pirate Radio.
I'm a free range parent.
Oh, yes.
I have not seen this. I know what movie you're talking about, but I have not seen this.
Okay, so do you have the cast, or you want me to read it?
No, go right ahead.
Okay, so you had the Count that was played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. Mm-hmm. You have, was it Gavin that was Reese and Fonz?
Gorgeous Gavin, whatever his last name
I can't remember his name. You had just Bob. That was Ralph Brown.
Yep.
Simon, which is Chris O'Dowd. And for those of you who don't know Chris O'Dowd, watch the TV show The IT Crowd. Yep. And Carl,
his co-star from The IT Crowd was also on that.
Oh, Richard Ananaye.
She was yes.
Yeah.
No.
Jen,
the female.
Yeah, I can't remember what her name is.
She actually plays the cook on the ship.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. But basically, Dave, go ahead and tell the story of what this movie's about.
So this is a story that's based in the 60s, back when Great Britain was still not playing rock and roll on the air. And, we're talking about Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, Grateful Dead. This is all stuff. And in order to combat that, you had all these pirate radio stations popping up, but they were basing themselves on ships just outside into international waters.
Right, so they couldn't be
mandated. Broadcasting it back into Great Britain. And this is a story about a particular ship and its gang of pirate broadcasters.
Lunatics.
And
they're a gang of lunatics.
And their lunatic leader, who is running the show,
the Count.
Broadcasting back. Yeah, no, that wasn't the Count.
Oh, no. What's his name? I can't think of it now.
It was Bill Nighy's character.
Yes.
And this is probably my favorite character that Bill Nighy does.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's hard to find a movie that Philip Seymour Hoffman's in that's not just at least worth watching. But this one was so good, and it's just one of those ones that kind of flies below radar. But if you get the chance, I believe it's streaming in a couple of places. It's a good Saturday afternoon watch.
I actually ended up renting it on YouTube, Vudu.
Oh, okay,
Vudu.
Nice.
On that, before we get into, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
There is a great book called 40 Watts from Nowhere, A Journey into Pirate Radio.
I've heard of this. I haven't read it yet.
I read this book 15 years ago or so. Yeah. It's by Sue Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
And she originally was based out of San Francisco, and she ran a pirate radio station out of her apartment. It was called KPBJ.
Okay.
And then she got a job, like a regular job in L.A., and then she started KBLT from her apartment there.
That's a great name.
Yeah, and it's really cool because it's one of those things where you're like, she ran like 24 hours a day, so she would have people come into her apartment that would do time,
right.
certain times and that kind of stuff. And she talks about like coming home one night and like the Chili Peppers are sitting in her living room doing an interview,
nice.
And all this stuff. It's like, it's a really cool. It's one of those books though that like it ends abruptly, but it ends only because it's a real life story,
right.
And it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of the only way this story could go down, because basically Bill Clinton signed into laws against all that stuff, and they rated her. The 96, Haitians Act of 1996.
Telecommunications Act of 1996 that absolutely ruined the landscape of radio and broadcasting.
And it was within a few months of that being signed that she came home and the feds were in her living room. You know, and that was
That's a great segue to my next one. Unless you have one, sir.
Is it Happy Harry Hard-On?
It is Happy Harry Hard-On. That would be from the
Pump Up the Volume.
That's right. We have talked about Pump Up the Volume. We are big fans of Pump Up the Volume on this show.
Okay, I have a confession to make. Pump Up the Volume was the very, very first time that I had ever heard Leonard Cohen. And hearing Everybody Knows.
I know.
Oh, my God. That was such a good song for that. You know,
that was
Pump Up the Volume was one of those places that introduced Leonard Cohen to a lot of people.
Yes, very much so.
Now, I had been introduced to him a little earlier than that, but I didn't get into him heavy until that movie.
Yeah, that was definitely my introduction to Leonard Cohen. That was actually my introduction to quite a bit of music.
Well, yeah, because I mean that soundtrack is just incredible. I mean, you've got you have the Beastie Boys, you have Concrete Blonde, doing a cover of Leonard Cohen.
Yeah,
and
I still like Leonard Cohen's version.
The one that I find so.
Well, you've also got Soundgarden.
Soundgarden's on there. You've got
Heretic on there.
You've got Urban Dance Squad is on there.
Yes.
You've got
There's one in particular that I kind of get a giggle at because we're
it's Henry Rollins and they're doing the Pump Out the Jams cover.
The MC5.
Yeah,
it was Bad Brains.
Bad Brains. That's what it is.
Bad Brains and Henry Rollins doing Kick Out the Jams.
Yeah, Kick Out the Jams.
But the one that I love, and this is just the music geek in me. There's we live in Nashville or around the Nashville area for the most part, and that's a very big Christian contemporary scene with the music. Well, there's a group that was named Chagall Guevara that has a song on that soundtrack.
Okay.
And I was just, it blew my mind because the lead singer is a guy named Steve Taylor who's...
Steve Taylor. I know Steve Taylor.
Steve Taylor was the lead singer of Chagall Guevara.
I didn't know that. So.
And, going back and listening to it, I was like,
Steve Taylor is such an oddball dude.
One of my favorite stories on him was he did an interview one time aside Amy Grant.
Mm-hmm.
And
I can only imagine how this is going to go.
And, the interview's finished, and this was like late 80s or something like that.
Probably.
So Amy turns to Steve and says, Steve, I'd like to say I really like your music, but it kind of scares me. Mm-hmm. And Steve, without missing a beat, looks and goes, well, Amy, I'd like to say I kind of like your music, at least all the songs that don't have the word baby in it.
Wow.
That would have been early 90s. Yeah.
So
that's the whole thing. Okay, before we get into Steve Taylor, this is our little side note for this one. Steve Taylor, although he has the Christian moniker on all of his stuff, is not your typical Christian.
Far from it.
Especially Christian musician, because Steve Taylor is one of those dudes that will unironically go out we'll find the most atheist band out there and be like, hey man, you mind if I go on tour with you?
Yeah.
And just
and was ultra cool about it.
And just that's fine. You can trash me all you want to from the stage. It's fine.
The irony of all of it is just look at some of the song titles this man had.
Jesus is for Losers. Always stands out for me. So.
Great song too. Was it I Blew Up the Clinic Real Good?
Yeah.
Meltdown at Madame Tussauds.
Yeah,
was
I know.
Another one.
I know. It's just it's one of those things you're like, this is a Christian artist?
And my personal favorite, The Lament of Desmond R.G. Underwood Frederick IV. And the only reason why I remember anything about that song was the opening line I used as a signature on my emails for years. And it was, quote, the news of my impending death came at a really bad time for me.
Okay, so back to the soundtrack of this movie in particular. So you've got, of course, we've already mentioned Leonard Cohen.
Yes.
You also had MJ12. You had Richard Hell.
Richard Hell.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
You had Bad Brains with Henry Rollins.
Right. Yes.
You had Chet Powers. You had the Pixies. You had the Descendants. You had Sonic
Descendants
Youth,
was on there
Beastie
too.
Boys.
I remember the
Peter
Beasties.
Murphy.
Cowboy
Junkies.
Yes.
Ivan Neville.
Oh my gosh.
Ivan Neville.
Now, is this the actual official, or is this all the music that's actually
this is just the movie this is the movie that was in
the movie.
The music
Songs. Okay, yeah, because I know that the Urban Dance Squad song "Living in the Fast Lane" is on there, but it's not on the soundtrack.
No,
but it's in the movie.
There's a lot of them that were in the movie. I don't think
Freedom of Speech from James Brown,
There you
Cold
go.
One,
Yeah.
87 and Laylaw. You had Soundgarden, you had Concrete Blonde, you had Was Not Was.
Yes.
Dad,
Hello,
I'm in jail.
I like
you
it
had
here.
And
Chicago-
everybody knows Was Not Was from Walk the Dinosaur.
Yes,
you know?
but they had.
I know, they're so
their
all over
stuff
the
is
place.
good.
You had Liquid Jesus. You know, it's.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
this is an all-star.
Who was the band that had the song on that about Cookie Puss? You know, the Charvel or Carvel ice cream thing.
Oh,
Oh,
you must have talked over me because it was Tale of the Twister from Chagall
Chagall
Guevara.
Guevara. Yeah, that was the Cookie Puss
that's
one.
the okay. So that's the
that's
Steve
Steve Taylor.
Yeah. So
All right, Dave.
Nice.
The name of the song was Tale of the Twister.
Taylor the Twister.
all right. Yeah. Happy Harry Hardon
Absolutely a
with
must.
his
That's a must. All right, Dave. What's your next one?
Diet Cherry Pepsi and
Talk to me.
Talk to me. Okay.
I've
That
seen
is the
this.
fictionalized story of Petey Green from WOL.
Oh
in
yeah,
DC.
yeah. That's
The DJ that started out as an ex-con and basically bullied his way into being a DJ.
who
with,
was the actor?
Dewey. I don't remember.
I can see it.
Hold on, I'm pulling it up here.
But I remember that one because that
But-
was where you start to segue into a
but
lot of the
he's-
talk radio stuff. You know?
Right.
Well, he was playing music, but he was also doing the talk. He basically invented that genre.
Don Cheadle.
And
Don Cheadle.
he-
Yeah.
Yeah, Don Cheadle. He was the one who was on the air who announced Martin Luther King being shot.
Right.
And he's almost single-handedly credited with getting the riots in D.C. to stop.
Yeah.
He's the one that James Brown called while he was on the air. Is like, look, we're doing a free concert at Georgetown.
Yes,
I want you to
I
come
remember
announce
this.
it. And and it's a great movie about a guy's. It's a fictionalized story about an actual real DJ that
And it
was part of the movement back then.
it really does represent the power that a DJ had. You know, the way to,
Yes.
to command
Right,
an audience,
right.
and that was a great one for it. You want to jump in on any of these, or you want me to just keep going? Because I'm looking at you, and
I have
he didn't do his homework.
I have a couple of them, but they're
Okay.
and one of them is, and she's just credited as DJ from the Warriors.
Oh, Lynn Thigpen.
Lynn Thigpen, yes, that
Hello,
plays her.
boppers.
And it's one of those things that, like, from the if I remember seeing that movie when I was young, and being very taken with her voice.
Yes.
And then years later, watching a movie and being like, "Wait, I recognize that voice."
Oh, I'll tell you one better. She was the chief on Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego.
Yes, she was. But it's one of those things where, like, then going back and watching it later,
Yes.
and being like, "Oh, I know the face," because you only ever see her lips.
You only
That's all
see
you
her,
ever,
her
against
lips
the
and her
microphone,
hand,
right?
where she's moving the record
exactly.
needle.
And it's one of those things where it's really, she's kind of in a way telling the tale of what's going on.
Well, she's kind of working like a narrator.
Exactly.
In reality,
of like where they are at this point,
what's
to this
going
point,
on,
to this point,
and,
exactly
where they're trying to get to, and telling the story on it. And it was so well done with her because, like you said, you don't see anything about her.
Nope.
All you see is the lips, which it kind of plays again to that DJ mystique. You don't see them, you only hear them.
Right.
So it allows her to be sexy, it allows her to be scary, it allows her to be informative, it allows her to play this role of just kind of this nonchalant
And let's be honest,
person.
Lynn Thigpen's got a sexy voice.
She
okay,
does.
I'm sorry.
She does. Absolutely.
Like I would kind of like Mike Rowe. I would listen to her read the phone book.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
it's-
Well, all right. So I'm going to segue into my next
right.
one then, because kind of along that same line, where you have a DJ that's essentially dictating what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Super Soul from Vanishing Point.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Now we're going to talk about nihilism. Okay. So
There's something about it because it's Cleavon Little,
yes.
and the whole story of Vanishing Point. If you take all of the stuff out of it and just go into it saying this is a damn good car movie.
Yes.
It's about a guy basically racing across the country,
Right.
For reasons.
And we're not going to get into the reasons.
Exactly, But he's racing across the country, and the only person that's kind of joining him, so to speak, on this is the DJ on the radio.
Right.
And he's kind of giving him heads up on where there's police, activity and stuff like that.
And again, Cleavon Little.
Oh yeah,
great voice for radio, man.
Yes,
and just everybody knows him from Blazing Saddles, but and as well as so many other things.
Yeah.
But definitely that voice for radio,
and just played the coolness factor of so much to the rafters. I mean,
I have seen Vanishing Point exactly one time.
You've met the quota.
and what's funny is that I had to when I saw that movie, I had to bootleg it because it was not available.
It's hard. It's like
these
the original
days. It's
Gone in
not
60
that.
seconds.
It's not that. It's not that difficult to find now. I mean, but at the time, like in the late '90s, early 2000s, it was like you could not find that anywhere.
And my little reference point for anyone that is of a younger age and they need to know what the hell we're talking about with Vanishing Point. If you watch the movie Death Proof,
okay.
They do a tribute to that.
They do.
The white car that they're driving through that is the Vanishing Point car.
Yes.
That's the car that was in Kowalski. Was that the character's name?
Hold on.
He's driving off the top of my head.
Yeah, he's driving that across country, and that's why they what's her name? I can't remember the actress's name.
You're talking about Chloe Bell.
Yes, she just completely geeks out
Kowalski,
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, that... All right, before we move on, I want to get into that because Death Proof is actually on my list because... what's her name? Sidney Poitier. Yes, it's Sidney Poitier's daughter. His name's Sidney Poitier. Plays a DJ.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you remember that? That was the whole thing. She plays Jungle Julia.
Oh, the one where she's requesting the song by the band that had like 6 names.
Right. But, it's that whole thing that, when they're driving and they're going to the bar, they're every time they see her billboard.
Oh,
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing with, she said on the air that if you go up to her friend and say this certain thing that she'd give them a lap dance, type stuff. So it's so it again goes back to that whole radio thing.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
All right, Dave, what do you got?
It's my favorite DJ from KBHR FM in Sicily, Alaska.
I knew Dave.
Chris in the morning.
I'm surprised you did
Chris
not
in the
lead
morning.
with this immediately because I know how much of a man crush you have on Chris.
Hey,
so
I love this show.
Oh yeah.
I loved Northern Exposure. But part of the reason why I loved it was because of Chris and that I've always had a love affair with DJs. I've always wanted to, be in radio and do that thing. I've just never had, any success at it.
And now we're podcasting.
And now we're podcasting.
Yeah, which is essentially the same thing in a lot of ways. So,
well, more on the old style, we're the non-regulated stuff.
Yeah, the non-regulated.
For now. Damn the man.
The new pirate radio.
Damn the man.
So, but yeah,
Snoopy made his break.
He did. He's in here. He's got his head in my lap
He finally was like, all right, I'm going to make it in.
Buddy, get out.
But before we move, because I know there's actually a lot to unpack with Northern Exposure and Chris.
Such a good show.
What I was going to say before, though, pump up the volume.
Yes.
I 100% credit Pump Up the Volume for what we're doing now.
Oh, absolutely.
A whole generation of oh, you mean there's this new technology that we can use to get our voices out there.
Well, and that, if you remember at the end of it, that was the whole
take
point.
Back the I know. Take back the airwaves.
Yeah.
I know. That was the whole.
Well, you also saw a major spike in pirate radio happen after that movie happened.
Yeah,
and we can all thank.
Happy Harry Hardon.
Adam Curry at this point. No,
Adam
Curry for providing us with
Podfather. Yeah,
the Podfather for him and a couple other guys creating a technology that now allows everybody to do it. And literally everybody in the world now is starting their own podcast.
Right. And you know what? In a way,
bad,
that's
well,
I'll say it's a good thing, and I'll say why. Because in a way, it's kind
for
of
the most part,
it's kind of the Wild West. I'm not going to lie.
Still, which is funny because this is a 20-year thing,
and
it's still considered the Wild West, which is weird.
But in the same token, it really gives everybody the opportunity to, if you think you have something unique to say, gives you the platform to do it.
I will say this though. And believe me, I am not an elitist whatsoever when it comes to any form of communication. And, it's kind of the same thing, though, with podcasting that's happened with music and the internet, where say what you will about the way things were done prior to the internet, because we all have gripes about the record industry and that kind of stuff. At least they did kind of curate stuff down to presumably the better of everything.
True.
Whereas it's kind of the same thing now with podcasting, where it's like, what do we got now? There's over 1 million podcasts out there. So now to say that there's over 1 million podcasts is kind of a misnomer, because there's only like a few 100,000 active podcasts.
True.
But there's also a few 100,000 podcasts that you have to wade through to find. And believe me, I've done it. I mean, believe me, I have done it. I listen to an ungodly amount of podcasts.
Same here.
And it's still one of those things where, and I add stuff all the time that doesn't make the cut eventually, where I'm like, I can't do this,
and I look at it very similarly to like going to a bookstore.
Yes, there's billions of books.
Exactly. And you're going to go through and look at titles and say, and then there's going to be that one that just catches your eye, and you're going to go, okay, this looks interesting. Let me dig down into this.
Right.
And you may stay with that author, or you may say, this sucks, and I'm going to move on to something else.
Or they had one good book or something.
Right, exactly.
We've done that plenty of times.
How many podcasts have you heard that had one great episode, and the rest of them you're just not good?
I know. So anyway,
okay.
Anyways, back to Sicily.
Yes, back to Sicily, Alaska.
Dave.
Yeah, this is
your cue.
I announced my show, and you guys run off. You guys run off on a totally different tangent on me. So what am I
love us for it,
though.
This show would not exist if it weren't for tangents. Okay.
Yes.
So basically, he had no format. He played whatever he wanted to play, and he mixed it in with his own philosophical musings, about life and about nature, and he would read sections from poetry and.
So if you're ever wondering what
literature,
if you're ever wondering what you do with a liberal arts degree,
nice.
I feel attacked right now.
I say that having a liberal arts degree.
Well, I feel very attacked right now.
But and to kind of play off of what you were saying there, Dave, it reminded me a lot hearing him just kind of going off on just randomness. It had that college radio feel.
Very much.
It had that public access kind of feel to it,
Man.
Which
exactly.
if you like that kind of stuff, it's gold for you. I mean,
about the Wild West when public access.
Oh yeah,
really hit
yeah.
in the 80s, man.
And I'm sorry, you have to love any TV show that ends a funeral by flinging a dead body into a lake using a trebuchet.
Yes,
there's something very cool about that.
Yes.
Yeah, and when they got rid of the original Doctor and brought in the new Doctor, the whole show kind of went down.
Yeah, it went downhill.
At that point.
I was not a fan.
No.
All right, you got another one, Alan?
Hold on.
I'll let you steal off my list if you want.
No, I've got it here. I just because I'm kind of in my head going through like this one is going to be one of those where Dave goes, what is wrong with you? What are you doing, Dave?
He's typing.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have muted my mic for that.
I'm going with Jack from The Fisher King.
Ooh. Good choice. Good choice.
I would not have thought of that, but that's I can't.
Basically, what happens? It's Jeff Bridges, and he's
kind of a shock jock.
He's kind of a shock jock, and he one night. This is early in the movie. He's talking about this new quote unquote yuppie bar that's open, or whatever, and he says somebody should go in there. He basically says somebody should go in there with a shotgun and take care of all these yuppies, or whatever.
And that's exactly
and somebody
what happens.
does, and it winds up that Robin Williams' wife was one of the people that was killed. Of course, he loses his job. He all that kind of stuff.
Loses his mind.
Yeah, well, I'm talking Jack,
Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, loses his job and everything, and he's held liable for it and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, and it is that kind of. That movie came out in 1990 or 91, somewhere like that, in there, and it's one of those that someone I'm sure that will come up eventually. Howard Stern was kind of.
I have him on my list.
Yeah, Howard Stern was almost at the height of his power at the time. His peak would actually come a few years after that, but he was definitely one of those, even though we didn't get Howard Stern around here at the time, we all knew who he was.
Right. Well, you had him. You had, who was the other big one that was up in New York that Howard Stern was fighting with?
You're talking about Don Imus?
Don Imus was another big one. I mean,
I have feelings on Don Imus.
Oh, I'm sure you do. But
I always have.
But you actually don't really get Howard Stern without Don Imus.
I agree.
Rivalry
I agree.
at WNBC. is half of what made. Yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and talk about it because I've got both. Let's just go ahead and discuss it because I've got both Imus and Stern on my list.
Let's get them off the list. Here.
And when Stern was at DC 101 and building his bones there, and then gets hired by WNBC. The height of his popularity was when he was always fighting with the station owners at WNBC and Don Imus.
Yeah, because in the movie they called him Pig Vomit, but in real life he went with what, Pig Virus, I think is what he called the station manager.
I don't know, something like that. Yeah, but it was
I forget. But without that I don't know, that tension between the station owner
that's where
and
a lot
Imus,
of us discovered Paul Giamatti.
Yes. And I'm actually gonna brag on myself a little bit because one of the papers we had to write for Mr. E's classes, we had to talk about the future of radio, and Sirius and XM had just come out, not long before that class.
Back when there were two companies.
Yeah, and I had to do a paper over, I forget what it was over, but I did mine over Howard Stern and shock jocks and all that. And Mr. E asked me what he thought was going to happen with Stern. I said, well, he's probably going to go to one of the satellite stations. And when he goes to one of the satellite stations, that'll be the beginning of the end for Stern, because once Stern has nobody to fight against and he can just do whatever he wants to.
Right.
It's not going to be as interesting, because part of what made Stern interesting was him pushing the boundaries of what he could actually do.
Well, it goes back to, again, going back to the movie Private Parts, but also from his book and all that, and stuff, where, there is that scene where they're like, the average person listens to him. The average Howard Stern fans listens to him so many minutes.
Yeah, because the reason they want to see what he's
going to say next. And the average person who hates Howard Stern listens to him even longer because they want to see what he's going to say next.
He hit on an element of, on one aspect, it was the one person you absolutely love to hate.
Right.
But in the other aspect, it was the ultimate anti-hero.
In a lot of ways.
He was Stone Cold Steve Austin before Stone Cold Steve Austin.
In a lot of ways. The thing with it,
yes, that's my wrestling reference.
I know, there we go. Well, I'm sure there will be plenty more. I have never had a whole lot of love for Howard Stern in general.
Hit or miss with me.
It's one of those things that the couple of times that I did catch his show, like when I was out of town or something, like, oh, look, Howard Stern's on the radio. And it's like, this is kind of boring. Like the stuff that happens in between his shock moments, boring as all hell.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of just like talking of,
just randomness.
Hey, what's going on? Hey, are they coming in? Are we sure this is going to happen?
Today.
Yeah, I mean, just that kind of stuff. And then also the fact that when he got his television show on E. And of course everybody used to watch it because this is in the days before the internet had free porn everywhere, and it was one of those things where it was it was kind of shocking, even though it came on at midnight on a Saturday. It was still one of those things where it's like, oh wow, they're bringing in centerfolds and porn stars and this and that, and all these crazy characters and stuff. But it was still one of those things where I'd sit there and watch it, and I was just like, Howard Stern is somebody that, like, if I knew him personally, we would not be friends at all. Yeah. And I
was never a fan of Howard Stern. I've never really liked his show or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But he was an interesting case study on how does somebody like that become popular? How do they reach the pinnacle of what they're doing? Right. And then when they go for the next step, it ends up falling apart for him somewhat, because
and now he's
the constrictions on what
America's
he could
do
was what was
like that.
Yeah, but the constrictions on what he could do and his pushing against those constrictions is what made the show interesting.
And also, without getting into any politics, some of his statements that he's made in recent months, where it's like, "Oh wow, you sold out completely to the mainstream, didn't you?"
But I'll give,
so
everybody can crap on Stern a lot, and I'm not his biggest fan by any stretch of the imagination. But I'll give
he's
him
an innovator. I mean,
I'll give
doubt
the man
about
credit about one thing if I give him credit for nothing else, and that is the fact that he is one of the few celebrities in general, but specifically, we'll call it trendsetters or whatever, that admits when he's wrong. That will sit
I'll give him that too,
and does mea culpas.
And I'll give him that.
And I think that also is a little bit of his appeal over the years, because it was one of those things where it was like, unlike Don Imus, he was not the type of person that would like make a huge mistake on a very public
and then
setting,
just pretend it never happened,
and then double down on it.
Yes.
And it's like, no, dude, just throw yourself at the mercy of the public opinion and say, look, I screwed up. I'm sorry. I'm going to do better next time. But no, I mean, and we could go through all kinds of DJs, that have done that kind of stuff over the years.
Screwed up, but
that just would not admit it. So anyway, go ahead.
So I'm going to go ahead and segue into the next one here, if that's okay. And it's one of my personal favorites, and I know it's going to put a smile on Adeline's face as soon as I say it. Ian the Shark.
Ian the Shark.
Wow. Wow. Airheads, baby.
Yeah.
That's, Airheads, baby.
That is
what's his name?
That is Joe Montana.
Joe Montana. Yes. Joe Montana.
Fat Tony from The Simpsons.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, or from
he's been in all kinds of stuff.
And I love it.
I've always loved Joe Montana.
As an actor, I absolutely adore him. I think he could,
he can play anything.
Absolutely,
he really can. He can play a heavy.
He can play comedy. He can play heavy.
But then he can be just like the most lovable goofball you've ever seen in your life.
And there's just something special about when you go, when they break into for those of you that haven't seen the movie, it's the movie Airheads, and it's all about a 3-piece band that's trying to get
the Lone Rangers.
They're trying to break. How can you be plural of alone?
I know.
But they're trying to break in the music business, so they figure if they can get their song heard on this popular radio station, they'll do it. So they break in, and it's just this irony of
it's a comedy of errors.
Oh, very much.
It's
when you figure it's Steve Buscemi, Brendan Fraser, and Adam Sandler is the band. They break into
and I'm just going to say this: Brendan Fraser does not get enough respect for the work that he's done in that industry.
Agreed.
That guy is an excellent actor.
But at the same time, when you're doing Dudley Do Right in George of the Jungle,
hey, I love George of the Jungle. Back off.
But I'm just saying,
he's done some family-friendly
when you're doing
stuff,
that,
but
or
what
Monkey
about
Bone,
Doom
or any number of stuff where it's like,
but then you have works like Bedazzled, which
I know
was
he was great. He was great. Did you ever see Gods
Doom
and
Patrol.
Monsters?
Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
Gods and Monsters. He was amazing. And dude, I have seen him do like just some amazing work over the years. And
there's but to kind of switch back over to Joe Montana, when they get into the radio station and you see Joe Montana, and he is the epitome of what we all know as what a real radio DJ looks like.
Oh, absolutely.
He's older, he's haggard, he's wearing just sluffy clothes, he's pissed off at everybody.
I mean, it's just, I know.
He hates the music.
Hates the music.
He's tired of being there.
What was the band? The Sons of Thunder?
Yeah.
And I mean, he's got a beer in one hand and a bottle of Pepto-Bismol in the other,
Believe me, I'm well aware.
But that really just, and then when they finally sit down and start talking, and forces the band that's broken in to kind of say, all right, you got in here, what are you trying to say?
Right.
Right. And there's just something special about he sees this spark, and you see how he just kind of falls back in love with music through the process.
Right.
And that's why I absolutely love that movie, just because, I take the three mains out of it, just for Joe Montana falling back in love with music. That right there is worth a watch.
And again, it features a song that I didn't always, but there was a good chance that if you were listening to my show, I would open up with, which
Degenerate?
Is the Ramones. We Want the Airwaves.
We Want the Airwaves. Yes.
I mean, it's just...
And hands down, one of the best cameos in it by Lemmy.
That's right. I used to masturbate.
Constantly.
I
was the head of the school newspaper. My God, if Lemmy wrote a newspaper...
I used to play D&D.
I played D&D too.
Yeah, and it's just...
But that movie is definitely worth a watch.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Let's see here. Gross Point Blank.
Oh, Debbie Debbie Newberry.
Yeah,
Debbie Newberry. Yep.
Mini Driver. Yeah.
Hey, Debbie Newberry. Hey, Debbie Newberry. Hey, okay, so for those of you that don't know, my fiance is from Michigan. So she has a special love for all things Michigan.
Okay.
This is one of her favorite movies, and it just so happens to be one of mine as well.
Wolverine?
Oh, yeah, big time.
She really hated what happened this year.
Yeah, let's not talk about it.
Hey, I can't say anything. My team got beat too. Same team, so it was...
But she... Go ahead.
I love this movie.
Yes.
The radio station and the music is absolutely a solid character of this movie.
Oh yeah.
You don't get a lot of this movie without the soundtrack and that radio station.
Well, and you've got such a randomness on the soundtrack too.
It ties back to my love of Northern Exposure. Debbie Newberry and Chris from Northern Exposure are kind of the same type of DJ.
Yeah, I could see that.
in different ways, but they're kind of the same type of DJ, and I just love this movie because of it.
Well, and the soundtrack on that was so good, and she played into it. You know, everything from the Violent Femmes to reggae to Pete Townsend. You know, I mean, it's just Faith No More. Yeah, exactly.
Guns N' Roses with their cover of
the Specials.
Live and Let Die.
Specials are huge on the soundtrack.
Who did Mirror in the Bathroom?
That's the Specials.
Is it the Specials?
No.
Mirror in the Bathroom was.
Double check that.
I want to say Human League, but that's not right.
No.
Because it was one of those bands that General Public, I think it may have been.
Was it General Public?
Yeah, but that just,
or was it Public? No, it wasn't Public Image Limited.
But the way that soundtrack
English Beat.
General Public and English Beat are basically the same band.
Yeah.
So. But just the way that was put together and how it played off of what was being seen, you know, what you're seeing on the screen was so good. Mm-hmm. And you're right, Dave. I mean, she does have kind of that, I don't want to say nihilistic, but just very stream of consciousness. I'm going to say whatever the hell I want to say.
It's like getting Camper Van Beethoven and Cracker mixed up.
Yes. Yeah, well, you know, hey.
Yes.
Essentially the same band.
Yeah. All right, Alan, you got us another one?
Did you ever see Talk Radio?
Is that the one with oh gosh.
Well, obviously
Eric Bogosian?
Yeah, where he's playing Howard Stern character. Which I think, doesn't he get murdered at the end of that movie, if I'm not mistaken?
His name was Barry Champlain.
Yeah, there you go. That one, I have not seen that movie in a long time. Like, I was in high school.
It's a dark movie.
It really is.
It's a very dark movie, but it, kind of plays, again, off of the whole,
Right. Now, at the same time, when I said Talk Radio, of course, immediately I thought of the television show Talk Radio
with
as
Bill
well.
McNeil.
Exactly.
That's on my list, too.
And that is, but yeah, that movie Talk Radio, I remember seeing that. And again, very nihilistic movie.
Yeah, very dark.
Very dark, and well worth a watch. Mm-hmm. It's not like,
it's not a
it's a Sunday afternoon, I'm going to sit down and watch that. It's like, no. You have to be, you have to be prepared for that movie.
You almost need to have like a light fluff piece set up to watch afterwards, to kind of cleanse your soul after watching this thing, Yeah. But it's still worth watching. And kind of along those same lines, I'm going to go ahead and throw mine out there. Dave Garner in the movie Play Misty for Me. That was Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And I hadn't thought about that movie forever.
That's funny. I had to do a little bit of mental gymnastics there. Like, Dave Garner. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of the same idea. It's that he plays a DJ that gets this obsessive fan that falls in love with him, and she keeps calling in saying, "Play Misty for me."
Right.
And it's an interesting take on the thriller / horror movie where you've got this guy who's pretty well isolated because he's a DJ, and then the one way that somebody can get to him is through the phone.
Right.
So, and it's
there are plenty of cases of that kind of stuff, of people that listen to these DJs and become obsessive about it and everything, and just
while I'm on this, let me rant for just a moment here, boys, because I noticed that there was one trope, for lack of a better word, that I saw a lot of, is that you saw DJs being used a lot in horror movies. Yes. And it kind of surprised me.
Oh, yeah.
Like one of my favorites was Stevie Wayne, which was Adrienne Barbeau in John Carpenter's The Fog.
Yep.
Where all you hear is her doing this.
Right.
I mean,
that's right.
You've got that, and one of my favorite ones, I still say it's the greatest concept of a zombie movie that I've ever heard in my entire life, was a movie called Pontypool. It's a lesser-known movie, but it's definitely worth a watch. Basically, it takes place in this little radio station in Canada where they get snowed in, and all they're getting are these reports of zombie attack kind of things going on outside, and nobody can figure out how it's spreading. And then at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, you find out that the zombie virus is being spread through sound.
It's like 5G.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of those ones that just, up until that point, I had never thought about it that way, but it was just this really cool concept on a zombie movie. And the fact that it takes place, it's the whole, everything's trapped inside of a building. Well, if you're trapped inside of a radio station, what are you going to do? You're going to stay on the air.
Right.
So it's that whole thing of him trying to report what's going on. And it's very much, John Carpenter's The Thing. It's very much, any of those movies where everything's happening outside and you're trapped in and you have to survive kind of thing.
That's the last thing we need is another movie to become prophecy like Idiocracy.
Oh God.
So,
I'm sorry. I'm trying to look up something here because there is a.
well, I'm going to go while you're
on.
looking up then.
Yeah, you go on, go, Dave. Let the man search. Go ahead, Dave.
I'm going to go with my next one.
Okay.
And it was a tribute to the Mexican border blasters. We're talking about Wolfman Jack down on XERB.
I was thinking about him.
I was going to finish with that because he is in American Graffiti.
Exactly.
That's the movie I'm talking about.
That is
American Graffiti.
The greatest cameo by an actual DJ I have ever seen.
And Wolfman Jack is one of those people that more people know who he is.
Yeah.
Than actually have ever actually heard him DJ.
Oh yeah, well he's become such an icon,
right?
You know, I remember when I was a kid, we went down to Orlando or Kissimmee St. Cloud, and Wolfman Jack used to have a restaurant that had the big speakers on top of it that would play his old.
Nice.
Oh, it was so strange to be 9 o'clock at night and hear Wolfman Jack coming at you. You know.
Well, I mean, his son is running. Basically his legacy company and a talent company, but because he was basically recording all of his shows and having them shipped to Mexico for broadcast.
Yeah, because he couldn't play them here.
All of his shows are on tape, so they're in the process of digitizing all of his shows, and they're actually syndicating the shows out to some of these smaller AM radio stations.
I actually
across the country.
That would be awesome.
I actually have recordings of most of my shows at Vol State,
and you can actually. You can actually listen to some of his shows on like YouTube. You can find them and listen to like complete shows.
Well, and I'll say this. There are very, very few DJs in the history of recording that actually have a shout out to them in a popular song. The band Sugarloaf, or the Guess Who, did Clap for the Wolfman.
The Guess Who did Clap for the Wolfman.
And that's all about Wolfman. And you hear him or someone trying to mimic his voice through the song. But the thing that I loved about that movie more than anything else was you have this whole buildup of the mystique of who is this guy, the Wolfman, you know? And it's going through all of this background stuff. And, you know, they're trying to get to the radio station to get his voice out. And then finally the guy walks in, Richard Dreyfuss walks in, and you see this chubby guy with a mustache sitting there eating a popsicle. And that's the whole scene. It's like, well, this is kind of a letdown, you know? But you find out later on that was actually Wolfman Jack. And it kind of goes back to that whole Ian the Shark thing where you get this build up in your head of what these people look like or sound like or what kind, you know, they've got to be the coolest guy on the planet because of X, Y, or Z. And then you get there and you find out that they're just another schlub like you are. You know, and in a way
who loves music and loves what they did or did love what they did.
Right. In a way that's kind of a letdown, but in another way it's kind of endearing because it's like, okay, well, if they can be this cool, maybe I can too, you know?
Okay, I finally found it.
All right, what you got?
George Jones had a song that came out in the 80s called Radio Lover.
Yes.
That is about, I was trying to remember the name of the song, was Radio Lover, which is basically about a woman listening to a DJ and you know, she'll call in and like request songs and sending it out to him, you know, type. Yeah. That's what I was trying to find because, you know,
strangely enough,
George Jones and, you know,
I was just listening to another podcast about George Jones,
Cocaine and Rhinestones,
and they talked about that very song.
I know.
So
I know.
And again, shout out to another podcast, Tyler Manco.
We do it all the time, dude. Great Cocaine and Rhinestones is such a good show. All
right, so I've got a couple more left here, and you know, we talked a little bit about Bill McNeil, so I'll go ahead and take him off the list, even though.
Well, one thing I do want to mention about Wolfman Jack is people forget that he was actually the host of Midnight Special.
Yes,
he was.
Which broke so many different performers, not just musicians, but, you know, a lot of comedians.
Between Midnight Special and what was it, the
Don Kirshner's
rock show. Yeah, that same thing, you know. Yeah. It's so fun to go and watch some of those.
Oh, yeah, some of the performances are great.
New York Dolls was on there. You know, it's like, whoa, you put the New York Dolls on television, like on broadcast television.
Well, I mean, if you can find video of the Midnight Special, Don Kirshner's rock show, the Old Gray Whistle Test.
Yes, that's another good one.
Those are just
forgotten about that.
Those are so good. And I mean, to see some of the performances, one of my favorite one was Meatloaf performing on Old Gray Whistle Test was just, I mean, to the rafters. All right.
Hey, his name was Robert Paulson.
His name was Robert Paulson. Didn't we cover this in the last episode?
It doesn't matter.
All right.
His name is Robert Paulson.
So, Alan.
Yes.
I'm here, and I'm listening. God. I have to go with Frasier Crane from Frasier.
And you know, the thing is that I liked Mad Dog personally.
Oh yeah,
because he was just such an idiot.
Oh,
I mean,
he was off the chain.
But yes, Frasier Crane is a. And especially like at the end of every season, they would do a rundown of all the voices, like the people who called in. And there were all these big names that you've heard of, And
every now and then you could pick them out.
Every now and then, yeah. But yes, Dr. Frasier Crane.
Oh, you cannot talk about radio on television or radio in movies and not bring up Frasier, because the fact that you see how it interwove into his life in Seattle, and it was just. It's so interesting because I know these guys can speak to it. You go and see the shots of him in his studio, and you're thinking, wow, I've never seen a studio that was that big or that clean.
Oh, no joke, dude.
Or that nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you guys can't see
cracker boxes.
You guys can't see the size of the room that Barry and I are sitting in right now, but this would actually be big for a DJ booth.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and relatively clean.
Yeah, I know. It's like comparative. Well, that was the thing, because like again, going back to Dave and my time at WVCP, when we first started in the late '90s, working on the air there. Mm-hmm. They had the DJ booth that was like so 70s chic. I mean, it was. I mean, it was real. I mean, it's obviously because I think when did that come on the air? That came on the air in late 70s, isn't that right, or something like that? I think that's
in the 70s. I think the school opened up in the 70s.
The school did open in because they just celebrated their 50th anniversary, but the radio station didn't come on the air until years later.
Right.
Right.
And I think it was at the very end of the 70s or the very beginning of the 80s. So it looks like a booth that you would think about. It was very close to what you would see in WKRP. So, not as big, but that type. And then in the years after I graduated and then came back, they had gone in and completely redone it, and it was like white. I mean, it was pristine in that place. It was like so.
And when I was still there, they still had a couple of Techniques record players.
Yes,
nice.
And I decided to go back, and I started pulling records out of the boneyard, and I think I was one of the last DJs that was still spinning wax live on air.
Now, I will say this, there was a tornado.
I taught myself how to do that.
Yeah. There was a tornado that went through there in 2006 that hit the building that it was in pretty hard, and they wound up moving the radio station from that building to another one.
Right.
And their DJ booth is huge now.
Oh, I bet.
Oh, I mean, like it's one of those things where it was like
it's a classroom booth.
Yeah, it's a class. I mean, it's literally like we could get a bunch of us in there. when we went back to the when they had a reunion a couple of years ago, and Dave and I were there, and I walked up to Mr. E at one point. I'm like, "So, when are we all getting on the air?" He's like, "That's not happening." It's like, "Oh, come on." He's like,
"But we're better now."
I was about to say,
we know what we're doing now.
We don't have that kind of money for bail.
Well, I was going to say, me at that time, me in my late 40s, would probably be more likely to say something you're not supposed to say on the air as opposed to me in my 20s at the time. So.
You ran out of dams to give.
A long time ago. So.
All right, Dave.
He would be trying to get us kicked off the air, and I'd be trying to keep us on the air.
Naturally,
it would be exactly like the podcast is now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty well. All right, Dave.
I'm gonna back away from the microphone for this one.
Uh-oh. I know what's coming. Good morning, Vietnam! I was going to end with that.
Yeah, nice. Robin Williams. What's the guy's name?
Adrian Cronauer.
Are you okay, Dave?
Adrian Cronauer hour. Yeah, I just blew my lungs out.
Which is really funny because I remember seeing him interviewed right around the time that movie came out, and him kind of being like, "Yeah, some of this is true, some of it's not."
He said he was never that funny.
Yeah, exactly. Type stuff. I saw him in an interview on CNN back when CNN was actually doing news, and right as this thing was coming out, and I guess he didn't realize that he was live on the air, like unfiltered,
right?
And he dropped an F-bomb. Right in the middle of the interview, and it was one of those things where it was like, yeah, we're live, just kind of like, oh, sorry.
Oops.
But it was still one of those things where it's like, I remember seeing that in the movie and people talking about it, because I think I was maybe early high school when that movie came out or something, whatever, it was like 88, 89, somewhere. So I was probably a freshman somewhere in there. And everybody talking about like, man, that movie ends so weird. It's like no, that's that's how the story ends. He got on a plane and he got out of Vietnam, and that was it. So yeah.
But again,
that movie repopularized the "What a Wonderful World," the Louis Armstrong song.
The soundtrack off that thing was ridiculous. I mean, it borders on like Forrest Gump level of soundtracks. It was just crazy good.
Well, it's part of that whole group of that Vietnam era movie soundtrack. Anytime that you get something like China Beach, Forrest Gump,
Tour Duty.
Let's just go ahead and call it. It was the boomers working out some trauma, is what all that stuff was.
It was. But they also brought in some stuff.
Let's admit it. They had trauma to work out.
Oh, I admit it. The Vietnam debacle. I mean, is just it still resonates. My uncle, who is in his mid-70s, was in Vietnam, and he's still dealing with crap. He's not like.
Right.
But it's still one of those things where it's like you can see it under the skin, so.
But the thing that I loved about it is, yes, you got a lot of cliches. You got, James Brown, I Feel Good. Okay, I understand that's going to be in there. You're going to have a song by the Supremes. You're going to have this kind of stuff. But then you get stuff like
Fortunate Son by CCR.
Yeah, it's
God, I hate that song.
Yeah, I know. But then you have stuff like
that should be the official song of Vietnam. I mean, that is
that or All Along the Watchtower.
Hendrix version of All Along the Watchtower. Yeah.
But then you get stuff like the Dawnbusters, which I'd never even heard of them. And then I was like, this is actually really good, Right. So it was a mix of bringing those things in, and even him making the jokes about the stuff that he was allowed to play when he's like, Percy Faith.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, who in their right mind would want to listen to like Montavani and Percy Faith if you're in the middle of a war zone? I just, there were some very special moments about that. And yes, I do think, did Robin Williams take a little bit of liberty with things? Absolutely.
Because Robin Williams is going to do that.
Anytime you take Robin Williams and you just let him loose to improv,
you're going to get something.
It's going to be 140 hours of pure gold, because the man was a brilliant improv guy.
R.I.P. All right, I'm going to throw a fun one out here.
Okay.
This is one of my favorites because you never hear his name, but it was the DJ from K-Billy's Super Sounds of the 70s.
Reservoir Dogs.
Stuck in the middle with you.
But most importantly, it was Stephen Wright doing it.
Yes.
The man that has the most monotone voice.
You cannot miss that voice.
And it's in a way, when you first recognize it, you're like, okay, it's Stephen Wright. We know what to expect. But it also kind of played on that idea of, oh my God, I have to play these songs again, and I've got to make them sound so good again, and I've got to sell these songs again. And it kind of played to that. And I never, I went back and watched the movie again, and I was like, yeah, you can almost play in the idea of Stephen Wright just like wanting to put a gun to his head because he is just depressed having to play this stuff over and over and over again.
Yeah, it was a good soundtrack, though.
Oh, it's an amazing soundtrack.
And let's be honest, none of us ever can hear Stuck in the Middle with You without thinking of that scene.
Or Little Green Bag.
Yeah.
That walking, the guys walking side by side, because that never happens in real life. So, but a great soundtrack.
Fire Scarecrow.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great soundtrack. And the fact that the soundtrack actually has the cuts from Stephen Wright on the actual album, introducing the songs, just makes it even more special.
Right.
It's hilarious. So, all right, Dave, what do you got?
Are we out? Dave's gone. What happened to Dave?
Uh-oh.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. There you're back.
He sat on his mute button.
You gotta love the internet.
Yep.
So I only have
get
one
ready
left.
to start talking shit about you. So
why would you wait for me to be gone? You do that to my face while I'm right in the room.
That's respect.
So I've only got one left.
Okay, I got. Go ahead.
I've only got one left.
Okay.
108 FM, Mr. Senior Love Daddy.
Oh, it's on my list. Samuel L. Jackson from Do the Right Thing.
Oh yeah,
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
That was
again.
Yep.
I would love for Sam Jackson to have his own like XM station or something.
Yeah. Oh God, yes.
and let's be honest. I know we try to keep this as clean as possible, but to have him, I would just want, for however long he's on the air every day, to have the motherfucker count.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like that episode of South Park where they were counting.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
It's
the shit counter. Yeah,
but he's basically trying to channel Petey Green.
Yes.
Yes,
who we've already talked to, but
absolutely
he's doing it in New York in the movie. He's
hottest
got
day
that
of
crazy
the year.
Yeah.
And it was, and again, he plays it up. He plays the character to the rafters. And I think one thing you'll see in a lot of these is the DJs that are represented on TV and radio. They do one of two things: they either play it completely to the rafters,
yes,
or they play as just apathetic. I don't give a damn. I just want to get out of this as quickly as I can and get paid and go home. Just
from the real DJs that I've known, you kind of get one of those two things.
Yeah, it's usually it's somebody trying to prove a point or somebody trying to get a paycheck.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's actually a third character that you see him play, and that's kind of the de facto narrator for the movie.
True. Yeah, you see that a lot. Now that you mentioned that, with the Warriors, with Vanishing Point,
What was that terrible horror movie you made me watch during our with Bad Candy?
Bad Candy, yeah, and that was the whole thing. Yeah, it's a terrible movie. Don't watch it. Okay. It's got Corey, the guy from Corey Taylor from Slipknot. And it's got C. Thomas, not C. Thomas Howell, but Zach Galligan from
but the whole
Gremlins.
The whole thing is,
but they're in they're
Corey
DJs.
Taylor is playing a DJ and they're telling ghost stories over the air.
Yeah, on Halloween,
on Halloween, and they're kind of playing the de facto narrator for the film. Also, they're part of the film.
Nice.
So. Oh, you know what that reminds me? I've got one.
Okay,
I have one more. Let me find it. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I've got two more. One I've kind of already touched on, but this one I haven't mentioned. But we did mention it in a previous episode, though. It was from the movie Trick or Treat, and it was the DJ Nuke, played by, if you're going to have somebody from the 70s play a DJ, you can do a lot worse.
Original Trick or Treat, okay.
Gene Simmons doing the DJ Nuke. And it's just, I would pay a good amount of money to hear Gene Simmons just turned loose into a studio with access to every possible song he could imagine and just allow him to kind of ooze through the radio. Not my favorite person in the world, I'll admit, but there's just something about the way that he plays that character and just plays that essence of cool, kind of, very Steve McQueen-ish. Kind of, oozing through the radio as he's doing
No, don't do that to Steve McQueen.
I mean, he did it, man. He played it.
Don't do that to Steve McQueen.
It's still one of those things that, the movie, love it or hate it, there was something very special about seeing him do that and seeing Ozzy Osbourne playing a preacher. I mean, there's such weird casting on that, but it worked. So,
yeah.
All right, Alan, what's your last one?
Because I had this... Yep. Had made a mental note of it and completely forgot because that's what I do on the regular until Dave talked about horror movies.
Right.
The movie Urban Legend.
Oh, yeah.
Tara Reid's character, Sasha Thomas, she has that love advice, kind of like love lines or whatever.
Yeah.
And, she winds up, she's on the air when she's murdered, you know, and it's kind of one of those things where everybody's listening to it at the party and they're like, oh yeah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, that's again, college radio.
Yeah.
You're going back to all that. It's not a very big radio role, per se, but there is the whole aspect of it plays into the finale.
Right.
So,
well, and I just happened to think of another one when you mentioned that as far as dying on the radio. Yeah. Johnny Grunge from The Adventures of Ford Fairlane.
Yes.
Played by Gilbert Godfrey.
I forgot about that.
Yes.
Johnny Grunge.
Where he's just, trying to be the most disgusting human being on the planet,
Well,
he wasn't far off. But
I like Gilbert Gottfried.
Gilbert's all right. You know,
what's really funny is to go back and watch like the season that he was on SNL, and he's not doing the voice.
Yeah,
and it's like, whoa, this is weird.
Oh, hearing him try to speak with a British accent is the funniest thing you will ever hear, because you know it's not his natural voice.
Right.
He almost sounds like Jerry Seinfeld. It's very weird.
It is weird.
All right. Well, the last one that I've got, and I kind of made mention at the beginning of the show, is the movie FM.
Okay.
And just to read you who was in this, there's a few names that you won't recognize, but there's a few that are going to go, oh, yeah. One of the characters was Jeff Dugan. It was played by an actor named Michael Brandon. One of the DJs was named Mother, and that was
Mother
Eileen Brennan.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And she plays up that sexy, raspy voice.
Yeah.
You had a guy named Doc Holliday that was played by Alex Karras. For those of you who don't know who that is, that's Webster's dad.
Yep. Football player.
The Prince of Darkness was Cleavon Little.
Okay. Again.
And Eric Swan was Martin Mull, who was actually enough the sex symbol in this movie.
Wow.
This is very
Bull
70s.
from Night Court. Yeah.
No.
Oh, Martin Mull.
Martin Mull,
not
Richard Mull.
Not Richard Mull. Yeah, sorry, Martin Mull. Martin Mull. Sorry.
That would have been a whole different
movie.
movie.
All I have is a picture in my head of Bull from Night Court trying to be sexy.
Yeah.
Oh, that was awesome.
Martin Mull. Okay.
Yes. But to go back,
Martin Mull has had such an interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you know, from playing the sleazeball in Mr. Mom to being Colonel Mustard in.
No, he's Mr. Green.
Or no,
he was Colonel Mustard.
Colonel
He was
Mustard
Colonel Mustard,
in Clue, to being what was his name on Roseanne?
Oh, he was
her
the boss.
It was her boss. That, you know, and he came on later to work at to run the lunch box.
Well, I mean, he's one of those great character actors that you can put in anywhere.
Absolutely.
In this one, because the whole setting on this was about a radio station that was struggling, and they're trying to get promoted and get this stuff. You hear people actually having like freakouts on the air and stuff, and one of his breakdowns on the air is one of the best scenes in that movie. But the other thing that I think was interesting about this is the first one where I really saw them pulling actual musicians into this. Linda Ronstadt is in this movie. Jimmy Buffett is in this movie. I mean, they have actual popular musicians at the time filming this movie with them. And you can really see where this is kind of setting the template, for lack of a better word, on what a radio station is supposed to, the struggling radio station.
Right.
After it kind of became a bit of a cliche after this movie, but this kind of set the mold for it. And on top of the fact it's a great movie, it's got a great soundtrack. Yeah, if you're a Steely Dan fan, the song FM is, used in this soundtrack.
If I never hear Steely Dan again in my life.
Hey, don't you badmouth Steely Dan.
Yeah.
Don't you badmouth Steely Dan.
You should have had that on your secret shame list last time.
Absolutely not. I have no shame about listening to Steely Dan.
But, and again, if any of these movies or TV shows that we've talked about sound interesting to you, all of us really encourage you to go check them out. They're definitely worth a watch. Some more so than others.
Yes, absolutely.
But, and if you have
I would not recommend anyone watch talk radio. In the wrong mindset.
And the other one that happened to mind while we were talking about that is Straight Talk, which is the one with
Dolly Parton. Yeah. That's right. Where she's the advice counsel.
Yeah, it's cute. It's fluffy.
And we could always we didn't talk about it. It's going real life stuff. Was Love Lines.
Oh yeah, well, Dr.
Drew and Adam Carolla, and that's the whole thing. That when it came to MTV, it was like no, they were actually like radio DJs.
Yeah.
And I used to, what was it? Thunder 96 or Thunder 94 used to carry them.
Yep.
Or was it Thunder 94 or was it
I think it was Lightning 100.
No. It was actually when it was still Y107. They would carry it at night from like 9 to 10 or something like that.
For those of you out of the Nashville market, you'll have no idea what we're talking about.
That's
right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've talked about all these fictional DJs. I mean, and some real ones with Dick Clark and
Casey
some
Kasem.
of the others.
Casey Kasem,
Casey Kasem, even
on Saved
Petey
by
Green
the Bell.
Do what?
Was a real DJ.
Who?
Wolfman with Jack was a real DJ. But
Carson Daly started off as a DJ at K-Rock in L.A.
But we've got to talk about Rufus Thomas out of Memphis.
Out of Memphis.
With WDIA.
Yep.
Oh, my God.
With the Hoot and Holler show.
Yes.
This was a major influencer in radio.
Right.
I mean, this...
So
this is one of the guys that was playing all that stuff that everybody was listening to.
Belle Biv DeVoe's song Poison was inspired by the Rufus Thomas song Poison. So, I mean, you don't get much more in that. And Rufus Thomas, was a mad man.
And around here, Keith Bilbrey.
Yeah.
That was Keith Bilbrey was on the air forever on 650 WLAC. And he was also the voice of the Grand Ole Opry for decades.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I mean, that is, for the people who listened to that, that is, he's a big, I've met him before. He's a nice, super nice guy.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you cannot miss that voice either.
No,
and he always is like, hi, I'm Keith Bilbrey. It's like, yeah, I know who you are. As soon as you opened your mouth, I knew who you were. It's like,
well, and one thing I would really encourage all of your listeners to do is that if you do have a radio DJ that's still on the air right now, write to them, encourage them, give them a little bit of reinforcement.
Because it is a dying industry.
Yes.
Because the thing is that especially with what used to be Clear Channel, which is now iHeartRadio, buying up everything, they basically, another local DJ that Dave and I have listened to a long time and also played in a band that Dave and I was with Joe Elvis.
Oh, he's been around forever.
But that's the thing is that back 15-ish years ago, he started recording. And like I was, at the time, I was working where I was traveling quite a bit for my work.
Yep.
And I would leave markets going east and west Tennessee and in southern Kentucky places, and would hear him on other radio stations because it was all recorded. Yeah. Our friend,
well, it's what they call voice tracking,
right?
Yeah,
they already know what they're.
Our friend,
all the playlist is in automation, so they know where they need to drop in his voice at. They know what he wanted to say.
Right.
Our friend,
and he could be the DJ for multiple markets all at the same time.
Our friend Miriam, who used to be on the air here years ago, she lives in Bulgaria or Georgia. She's somewhere overseas now. Yep. She still does a radio show.
That's awesome.
She does it from there, and it's one of those things. She's got a home studio. She's got two kids. She does everything from the home studio. They track everything, and then it comes back to the radio station here in the U.S. that she's working on.
Well, I have a friend of mine named Erica Fox that was on the radio here in Nashville for a while, and they have now moved to somewhere in Florida. But she's on internet radio, and she started doing her show again.
Right.
And, it's the same idea. Shout out to you, Erica.
Yeah.
But one that you were talking about, or when you were talking about local DJs that have been around forever.
Right.
And if this doesn't put a smile on both your faces, I'm really going to be disappointed in you. Coyote McLeod.
Well, he's since passed.
Well, yeah, but that guy was around.
I was thinking
forever.
about him. I was also thinking about what was his name? Jerry. It was on
Jerry House.
Jerry House. It was on WSIX.
Yes.
Forever in the morning. Then you had but what was Bubba Skinner's real name? Because he was on KDF and then he went to WSIX.
Yep.
In the afternoon.
I can't think of it off the top of my head. I can see him too.
Yeah, I know. But it's one of those things where, again, you have, and the thing is that both of those guys, because the CMAs every year, they would have like
Carl P. Mayfield,
thank you. They would have one of the awards they would give out would be like the best DJ in small market and large market stuff. And Jerry House won the small market for multiple years in a row.
Yep.
And Carl P. Mayfield wound up winning several of them as well. So it's kind of cool to know that that those people that you listen to, that you've heard in your own local area have reach outside of the area.
Well, and then you get into like the old, a lot of the radio shows that got marketed to other markets, like Red Hot and Blue.
Well, we've forgotten a couple other ones here. Remember Rick Dees?
Oh God, Disco Duck, absolutely.
Shadow Stevens,
Tom Joyner.
Yeah,
you got to mention Tom Joyner.
Shadow Stevens.
Yeah.
These are people that
Dr. Demento.
Yes, absolutely.
Dr. D. You got to give a shout out to Dr. D on that.
Yeah, But
these are
Tom Joyner. That was a good pull, actually. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned
that's a great one.
So,
but there's going to be radios or radio DJs that are in specific markets that people are going to know that they're going to be. Why didn't you say XYZ or whatever?
Well, that's a doctor. What's his name? Aquarius is one, and then also the other Dr. Dre,
who's the
and Ed Lover.
Yeah.
They started off on radio. and then went to MTV.
Well, that's like Sway with
Sway, exactly.
Shade 45
exactly.
on XM.
Exactly.
He was a DJ that got
went to
hired
MTV,
by MTV,
and then he went back to
and
DJ.
now he's on
Exactly.
Sirius XM.
Exactly.
I'll throw another one out
I
here.
still try to listen to Sway because I enjoy listening to the Five Fingers of Death.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's just awesome.
Well, and let us not forget Delilah. You know,
There is
it
that.
may not
Yes.
necessarily be
I
the
know,
music
I
that you
know.
like, but you know, you got to give credit where credit's due.
Hey, you know, she has a huge audience.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, and like, even now, she still has a huge audience. And
absolutely.
You know,
it's mainly,
I know I keep bringing up.
It's mainly middle-aged married women, but
Well,
you know,
yeah,
it's like,
or people that are trying to fall asleep.
exactly. Yeah, it's definitely put
I
you
know
to
I
sleep.
keep bringing up Pete. I know I keep bringing up Petey Green, but Petey Green is also part of that group with his producer, the guy that discovered him. You know, Dewey Hughes,
Yep.
Yes.
who ended up becoming a DJ in his own right, who ended up buying WOL, which became the cornerstone of what is now Radio 1.
Oh wow.
Oh wow, because I didn't even know that. You know, something we haven't talked about is a lot of the morning stuff. You know, you have like Rick and Bubba, or you had Bob and Tom,
God.
You know, and these were all syndicated. You know that what was some of the other ones? You know that wind up being what's his
Opie
name?
and Anthony.
Free beer and Heart Wings.
Free Bill and Heart Wings, or you had what was it, Mancow?
Mancow
Out of
was another
Chicago,
one.
you know, in different places, you know, different and nice. We're not even getting into sports talk at this point.
No,
I mean
no point.
that's a whole other thing, you know. But I mean these were they were so popular that they wound up being syndicated, and we heard them forever around here as well as in other markets. So
Absolutely.
Well, Rick and Bubba's still syndicated.
Yes,
it's just
I
not
know.
carrying this market.
So
well, I know
is,
Bob and Tom, like, didn't one of them retire and then?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole thing. I don't know what happened. I have not listened to them in years. I know
Bob and Tom was another one.
Yeah, that's what. But I know that Chick retired, and then one, I think it was Tom, retired also.
I'm not sure.
And so it's kind of one of those like, okay, then what's the point if you know?
Well, and who are the two guys that are out of North Carolina? Oh gosh, Rick, not Rick and Bubba, but
Rick and Bubba's out of Alabama.
Yeah,
I can't remember the two that were because they were big in the Nashville market.
Free Beer and Hot Wings.
No,
or,
I can't think of them off the top of my head.
I know it's. I haven't listened. I'll be honest. I haven't listened to the radio.
Oh,
especially.
John Boy and Billy. That's who I was trying
John
to
Boy
think
and
of.
Billy. They're out
you
of
go.
Carolina. Yes, yes. Now that you say that, I remember
If you had
them.
never mentioned their name, I would have been okay with that.
Just ruined all that therapy.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you know.
Dave.
And
you mentioned all these great DJs, and then you dropped the bar so low.
Well,
with John Boy and Billy.
Yeah, I know that Anthony and Opie.
Yeah,
you know,
Opie and Anthony.
or Anthony, Opie, whatever it was, were for a
I mentioned
while.
them.
Were for a while
mentioned
big
them.
until there was a controversy, and then they split, and you know it just.
Well,
after a while, when Tom Joyner kind of slipped out of favor and left the market, you had D.L. Hughley come in and was doing a
Oh, really?
radio
I didn't
show
realize
for the
DL
longest
was
time.
wow.
DL
I
did-
would listen to that. I love DL Hughley.
well,
It was okay.
and that's
It
also
was okay.
one of the.
Well, you know, that was, you remember when Howard Stern left WNBC, you know, you remember who took his place?
I don't remember.
David Lee Roth.
Was it really?
Didn't last long.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, that's, but yeah.
They probably didn't have enough money in the budget for all the cocaine he was shooting.
Well,
very
let's
possible.
look, a little bit of David Lee Roth goes a long way.
Yeah, no
and,
kidding.
and he's one of those people that if you do not have a good producer that can rein him in and keep him
You
focused,
might as well forget it.
yeah, it's he's worse than I am about that, and that's saying a lot. Okay,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, so listen.
I was going to go probably dead even on that.
So we have listed off a ton of DJs.
Hey, remember we said this was going to be a short episode, and we're an hour and a half already.
Hey, that's
so.
all right. But one thing I want to encourage all of our listeners to do is, if you get the opportunity, if you hear, you know, if we miss somebody that you want to have a shout out to, or you think there's something that we need to know about, jump on Discord. Come out and tell us about this stuff.
Look at you being all professional and shit
Hey,
in
man,
here.
you know,
It's like,
Hey, I'm on Discord right now.
He's
I'm on Discord right now.
He's not wearing pants, but he's on Discord right now.
we make Barry a featured player, and all of a sudden he's like being all professional. It's like, we have a standard to live down to here. Okay, this is.
Forgive me for raising the bar. I'm sorry, Alan, but yeah, seriously, if you guys do have any, you know, anything that we've missed on this, because we're always looking for new stuff as well. You know, if you hear of any DJs that are, you know, ones that have had just historic stories, there's a ton of them out there. First thing I would do is encourage you, hey, reach out to those DJs and just
Absolutely.
say, hey, you know, give them some support, because like Alan said, it's a dying
Very
art
much
form.
so.
And it is an art form. It's not just a job. It's something you got to know how to do.
Quick note here before we get out of here.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned, you know Miriam, right? Miriam, that she used to be on KDF, and she was on Thunder 94 when it went off the air. She was at Vol State.
You talking to me?
Yeah. Did you know Miriam?
Yeah, I knew Miriam.
Okay.
Yeah,
I figured you did.
I'm
Miriam,
pretty sure she didn't like me. I considered me like a big nerd or something.
I love Miriam. Miriam and I were tight, and I still think some days she didn't like me. So it was just like...
Nice.
That's just her. And probably rightfully so, too. But she was employed by Thunder 94, which was, a radio station.
The best radio station.
One of the best radio stations that we had, especially in the mid-'90s, And she was there, and I would love to get her on the show to talk about this, and we probably can do it. She was... The day that they went off the air, all the DJs got together and locked themselves in the booth and went off on management, completely uncensored, until they finally shut down the the transmitter.
The transmitter.
That's awesome.
And I mean, like, completely uncensored. I mean, painted the air blue on the way out.
Beautiful.
And I'm like, I have always wanted to sit down and talk to her about that, because we never really did. Because every time I asked her about it, she would just kind of laugh and wouldn't say anything. So I'm like, all right, we're going to have to talk about this.
I wonder if there's a non-disclosure.
I don't know. I doubt it. I mean, that's been 25 years.
Somebody's got to have a recording.
Yeah,
of it.
and like I said, that's
okay, listeners. If you have this recording, send it to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and there was another famous, there was we're going back to the Y107.
Yep.
There was Late Night Lunatics used to come on Sunday nights at midnight, and remember they got pulled off the air one night. Well, I was listening to them when it happened.
There's a very famous clip of Casey Kasem.
Oh yeah.
But was it Fluffy?
Yes.
Was the name of the dog or something?
Yeah.
And he just goes off about having to talk about somebody's dog dying, and they forgot to cut his microphone,
right?
And they recorded this.
I know.
Oh, it's brutal.
I know.
It's so much fun, because you think of Casey Kasem as like constantly a happy person, and just ripping into the idea that he's got to segue in from this to a story about a dog dying.
Exactly. So, all right. So now that
DJs are humans too.
Yeah. Yes. And now that I derailed the whole thing again, as Barry was saying, go and check out our Discord. Go check out our Instagram, and as well as Facebook, which I don't know how much longer we're going to continue with Facebook, but we'll see. I mean, it's kind of I'm just about done with Facebook or Meta or whatever the hell they're calling themselves these days. So,
I've been trying to post stuff over there. It's getting harder and harder to use our.
Well,
Facebook
I know
page.
that since we have gotten multiple inquiries from Facebook wanting us to because they got into podcasting this last year, wanting us to start uploading there. And Dave and I both read the terms of service, and we're like, no. No.
It's kind of the same way with Spotify.
Yeah, exactly.
That
was the whole thing.
I
was ready to submit us to Spotify until I read the terms of service. I was like, fuck, no, we're not doing this. And there are some other pretty much more popular podcasts than us that are having problems with Spotify right now.
Yeah.
And multiple ones, more than just the one that everybody's thinking of right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, no. Again, it kind of goes back to the, hey, this was a lot of fun, and then the suits get involved.
Yeah.
You know what? Well, this is where I'm once again going to plug Adam Curry and the fact that he
the No
is
Agenda
trying
show
to,
with John C. Dvorak, you know.
Well, it's not just that. He's trying to make sure
podcasting
that podcasting
2.0
stays a free, use item by doing podcasting 2.0, because for the longest time...
Have you looked into podcasting 2.0? Oh, you need to. It's really cool.
I'll check it out.
Something we actually have an index in there, but we haven't done anything with it yet. So which we need to. So
yeah, we need to, because basically when podcasting got started, iTunes became the de facto index.
Right, I remember that.
I know.
Well, iTunes, Apple has now changed the way they're doing podcasting, and it's screwing everything up. So now Adam Curry and his group of tech geeks are trying to fix it so that there's an actual independent index so that nobody can really kill podcasts.
Okay.
Right.
Well, keep podcasts free, kids.
Absolutely.
That, and
stay hard.
Absolutely.
Take back the airwaves.
Talk hard,
That's right. Talk hard.
But and if you enjoyed this episode, spread it to your friends. If you hated this episode, hey, that's good press too.
Yeah.
So
spread us like a venereal disease.
Remember,
well, like I've always
what's the old adage?
Like
they
I've
just
always
want to see
said,
what we're going to say next.
Yeah, exactly.
like I've always said from the beginning, if you love the show, tell your friends. If you hate the show, please tell all your enemies.
Yes. Well, guys, thanks again for having me in, and I look so much forward to more episodes.
And since this is going live, and we probably won't get another one beforehand, just remember, if you're not getting the V or the D this coming February 14th, it's pronounced Valentine's A.
Are you just trying to plug it for you?
No. I saw that the other day, and I shared that with a friend, and I was like, believe me, the irony of how this is pronounced is not lost on me.
Oh, yeah.
So
are
you just that hard up for Russell Stover's candy?
Yeah,
is that it?
Come on. All right.
Come on,
for all of our listeners, Alan's single and evidently desperate. If you're looking for if you're looking for a bad time, give him a call.
Find him on Tinder.
No. Let me tell you about a service that I got.
No. That's a whole different show.
I was going to say he's probably on Grindr too. But
okay then. Will you wrap this up, please?
Yeah, well. So anyways, I am Alan Smith.
I'm the other guy, Big Dave.
And I'm Barry.
And we will see you next time.
See ya.
Baby, if you've ever wondered whatever became of me, I'm living on the air in Cincinnati, WKRP. Got kind of tired of packing and unpacking, town to town, up and down the dial. Maybe you and me were never meant to be. Just maybe think of me once in a while. I'm at WKRP in Cincinnati.